It's very complex and it will take years and years and years and years and years and years and years to figure you out. You're a mess, girl. And so am I. And gentlemen, sorry. Hi lovelies and welcome to my channel. My name is Bex and I've been a practicing green kitchen and cottage witch for 18 years. And today we are talking shadow work. What it is, why it is important, what precautions to take and how you can do shadow work as a beginner and what shadow work techniques are out there for you to apply. Now, shadow work is often referred to in the context of witchcraft. However, it is beneficial for everyone and it's not actually a concept out of witchcraft. It's a psychological concept and everyone can use it. So if you're looking into personal development, you would like to work through trauma, you would just want to achieve greater overall happiness or find your purpose in life, shadow work is the way to go, and today we learn how. So let's dive into it. However, if you're getting bored by my constant blabbering, feel free to check out the description box below because I have linked you the different chapters so you can just jump to the interesting part. How convenient! By the way, I do videos on practical witchcraft tips and tricks for beginner witches as well as advanced practitioners, kitchen witch recipes and witchcraft vlogs. So if you don't want to miss out on a lot of magic, then make sure to hit that subscribe button and become part of our lovely witchcraft community. So when I first heard of shadow work as a itty bitty baby witch many moons ago, I thought, wow, that sounds like dark wizardry. However, I quickly experienced this is really not the case. It just sounds so mysterious, dark, magic-y, as if you were to battle demons, which in some ways I guess you are. Let's break it down what shadow work is. So shadow work is a concept that first was really developed or coined by a Swiss dude named Jung, a psychologist that lived end of the 1800s, beginning of 1900. He had lots of interesting ideas around personality and archetypes, and he's actually a pioneer in analytical psychology. He also worked a couple of years with Freud, that's the penis guy. And not only was he a scientist, but he was also very spiritual. Anywho, he was the first to bring up the term of shadow. So, what is a shadow? So the shadow is a part of your personality. Dark part of your personality. And it's an accumulation of the subconsciously repressed emotions, feelings, desires, and everything that resulted from some kind of conditioning in your childhood or also in later life through caregivers, society, or anyone else important in your life. It can be a very complex thing to explain, but we keep it short and sweet. So basically it's suppressed personality traits, meaning that maybe as a child you like to do something very much and you found a lot of joy in that, but your parents said, no, you can't do that. Good girls, boys, insert gender here, don't do that. And you've learned, oh, that is not okay, that is not okay to do. So I suppress it, I won't do that. And that in turn created some kind of shadow in you, from which you now act and react to certain types of situations that have to do with that, or from which you judge other people and yourself. It's beliefs that have subconsciously been conditioned into you, and it's also things that resulted from trauma. And the term trauma usually really evokes like thoughts of like very severe things happening to you, like childhood abuse or sexual abuse and stuff like that. However, that's not the case. Trauma can also be little things that happen to you that you maybe didn't even realize were happening to you in your life. Like some sentence that someone said to you and that you heard so often that you started to believe it. A shadow can also hold fears and insecurities that you subconsciously hold. The fear of rejection, the fear of failure, fear of abandonment. There are many things that go into the shadow part of your personality. If you want to have it really simple, you could probably describe it as the little demon that's behind you, the shadow on the wall that makes you act and react in a certain way to certain situations or people, that whispers in your ear that you don't even really realize is there. That is just ingrained in your being. And it's very hard to see if you're not looking for it. So what you do with shadow work is that you take a very bright light and you shine it onto that shadow. So you basically dissolve the shadow. Now this sounded as if the shadow was only negative, which is not the case. The shadow also holds a lot of positivity in it, a lot of untapped potential, and a lot of very healthy and necessary intuitive kinds of reactions that you could have. And it brings us to the next point. What is shadow work? It's asking yourself, why am I the way I am? Shadow work is trying to figure out what your shadow entails and then how to deal with that. How to draw out the positives, how to accept it and love your shadow, and how to deal with aspects of it that are in your way. And when we do shadow work, we usually go by a certain progress, which is identify your shadow or an aspect of your shadow, because obviously a lot of stuff goes in there. Accept your shadow without judgment. Practice self-love and compassion. Embody it, meaning draw out the positive aspects and work it to your advantage. And then integrate the shadow. Basically, draw the shadow back within yourself. Shine lots of bright light on it and deal with what's there. In very, very easy terms, it's therapy for yourself, given by yourself. Which doesn't mean that you can't do shadow work together with a therapist or counselor, which might actually be advisable if you have suffered severe trauma or dealing with very heavy stuff. As well as if you're not very used to self-reflection and introspective. Your shadow in some ways is also the lens through which you see the world. It's the thing that triggers emotions and actions, and that can lead to certain patterns that you follow in your life without actually realizing. What a shadow, however, can do is that it conceals the true self, the authentic self, and stand in the way of your happiness or in the way of your full potential. So shadow work itself can describe or hold a number of different techniques or exercises with which you can illuminate your shadow and work through your subconsciously balled up mess. So why is shadow work important and how can shadow work be beneficial to you? Well, let me tell you. If you can define your shadow, you know your triggers, you know why you react in a certain way, you know why you think what you think, and you also know which kind of behaviors or patterns or emotions have been conditioned into you and which ones were actually there from the pure beginning, from the start, basically which ones were your authentic self. It can help you find happiness, it can help you be the person you're meant to be your happiest self, be your best self, and with that also find a purpose in life. It also makes relationships so much easier because you really know why you react in a certain way to someone saying something to you or doing something to you, and you will have an easier time speaking about those things, reacting from a place of unbiased reason instead of raw emotions that are there because of something that has happened 15 years ago. Shadow work strips you of your mask that you're showing the outside world and that your brain has become to believe is true, and gets rid of all the lies, all the conditioning, and all the barriers. So now let's see why it is so important for witchcraft. For me personally, witchcraft is very much mind over matter. And it's very important to know your mind, to know your thoughts, and be aware of the light and the shadow parts of you. Because we all as humans are one whole, and it's not all dark, it's not all light. It's a good mixture of gray in there. And as a powerful witch that works with your mind, that works with what is in you, it's important to know what's in you in the first place. In general, it gives you a clearer perspective on yourself, on life, and on everyday situations, because it really teaches you to self-reflect your actions. It will also make you less impulsive. If you're someone that suffers from making very rash or impulsive comments or decisions, shadow work is also great. Since you're reflecting before you act or speak or do stuff and really soul search or know if something is triggering you, you can then choose to act on it or not. Which helps you stay true to yourself and to your actual desires, which then hopefully at some day will lead to you being like, I lived my life without regrets. Now we all know that maturity has nothing to do with age, at least once your brain is fully developed. But it has more to do with how well you know yourself and how well you know your mind. Shadow work can also lead to greater creativity because unfortunately in society today it's very much drilled into our brains that we have to achieve certain things. It's very academical, it's very 9-to-5 job, good income and stuff like that. But maybe that's not what your personality needs. Maybe your personality is actually way more creative and is suffering from those from outside opposed constructs. And once you start to do the shadow work and really question, so why am I doing the job that I'm doing? Why am I living the life that I'm doing? Am I doing this out of my own desires, or am I doing it because I've learned that this is what I want? Then you might find, oh no, wait, actually there are other things that would make me happy, and that's the untapped potential that I spoke of before. You will also learn that there's duality in the shadow. Something that can on first glance seem very negative can always hold something positive in it. Something that seems very positive can hold something actually very negative in it as well. Now, a word of precaution when you do shadow work. If you are someone that has suffered through very traumatic events or is going through them right now, if you're at the moment mentally not feeling well enough, these are times when you should maybe seek help for doing shadow work, that you have someone there with you, because it's sometimes very, very easy to spiral in a negative thought pattern. And it can also be hard to sometimes see stuff when your mind is clouded with depression, anxiety, and whatever else. You will also be digging through a lot of memories and unpleasant memories. So if that could potentially trigger something unpleasant for you, you might want to have someone there that can help you navigate and guide through it. Now, finally, we're getting to the interesting part: how to do shadow work as a beginner. So there are a couple of steps and techniques that you can practice, not in a shadow work session itself, but just as you go about your day. In order to do self-work, you have to be kind, loving, and forgiving to yourself. So I would advise to look into self-love, self-care, all these kinds of things, and especially self-talk, how you talk to yourself. Are you forgiving to yourself, or are you judging yourself harshly? Are you being mean to yourself? Before diving into shadow work, it is good to practice being loving to yourself, being kind, and leaving judgments at the door. The next thing that's super important is awareness. Awareness of your feelings. If you're in a social situation, let's say you're talking to your partner and you guys have a fight, it's very, very easy then to just look at the other person and be like, oh, it's their fault, obviously. Yeah, they haven't washed the dishes, obviously they don't value me, I'm always doing everything here. And you get caught up in your feelings of anger and frustrations and whatever. Take a step back and see, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this? Where does that feeling come from? Like, really search deep in your soul, like, why is that feeling there? Have I felt that before? When have I felt it before? And then make a mental note. You can even write that down in a book. All these kinds of emotions you have over the day in certain situations. And after a while, you will get very aware of that. You will find yourself in situations where you're like, I should look more into that feeling. Write them in a little book. So when you have the time and peace of mind and a calm environment, you can actually sit down and do shadow work with them. It's also very good to start observing your reactions and your actions. What you do if you have a choice between two things, if someone asks you to do something, what you do and what you feel while doing that, and then why you do that. Is it because another person expects it from you, because society expects it from you, because you really want to do it, because in some way you feel obligated, because of some underlying feeling in yourself or some urge in yourself? And the most important thing, that is very hard to combine with point one of self-love and self-acceptance and self-care is stop lying to yourself. Because oftentimes we will pamper ourselves a little bit when there's something uncomfortable, if there's something not sitting right with us. We will start to make excuses for ourselves and we will start to lie to ourselves to make ourselves feel better. That is detrimental to shadow work. Shadow work really needs the truth stripped of all the lies, especially the lies you tell yourself. It also means you have to be able to admit if you were wrong or imperfect. And one more thing that you can do on a daily basis is to question your beliefs. When you find yourself in a situation where you made a statement, who taught you that? Did you learn it somewhere? Do you really feel that in your heart? Or is it just something that has been conditioned into you? And now we get to actual shadow work exercises. By the way, I've also linked you a couple of books down below that are fantastic, either as prompts and journals for shadow work, or just in order to get a little bit more in-depth information about it. So my advice would be to sit down in a neutral kind of environment that doesn't have any kind of triggers for you, that is very calm, where you can be alone with your thoughts uninterrupted. It's super important to really center and ground yourself, to really find inner peace, to be working in depth on your feeling. Don't do it when you just had a fight with someone or when you're stressed out or when you're super anxious. Do it when you really feel like you can ground yourself. So if you have a little journal with a couple of emotions that you want to shed some light on, that you gathered throughout a couple of weeks, you can obviously work with that. You can sit down, go through it, and then really dissect the different emotions. And it's very, very important you do that without imposing judgment. You only observe. You observe without forming any kind of opinions about why you feel a certain thing or how you should feel like. You're really only seeing it. And that's something that's very unfamiliar to us because it's very human to judge. We judge everything, every situation, every person that we meet, we judge ourselves. It's just a natural reaction to do. So to actually look at something and be completely blank and be like, okay, this is what is, and it can be, is hard. But it's important to do that because that's the only way you can really learn to accept your shadow and to even love that part of you and then bring it into the light or work with it or see what you want to do with it without it being clouded by another shadow, without another imposed kind of belief or judgment. And a fantastic tool here is journaling. If you have not been working with a little notebook, you can also do other things, like you can go into your childhood. For a lot of people, it's also very helpful to do meditation, to just sit in silence with yourself and let emotions arise or let situations arise. And if you're really looking, there will be a couple of things that will surface in you, things that cause you unhappiness, memories maybe out of your childhood that need resolving, that need healing. And once you get yourself into a shadow work session, when you really sit down to do it, it is also very important to practice self-love, self-compassion, and maybe also have a couple of coping mechanisms if things are getting too heavy, too tough. Maybe someone that you can call, maybe someone that you can talk to, or just a nice cup of tea. What you can also do is to look for patterns in your life. A lot of times we find that, for example, in relationships that we had, kind of history repeating itself in the way you interact with people, or what kind of people you seek out, what kind of qualities you seek out in people. Personally, I love to do those things with pen and paper because then you really have it there black on white and you can peel off the layers. You take a situation or that pattern in your life and you look at it and you ask yourself, okay, so what do I do? What is my pattern? And then after you have established that, you can go deeper into like, okay, So why am I doing this? Why am I choosing to do this? Does it have any kind of like benefit? Why does it make me feel good to choose in that way? Or what does it bring to me personally? And once you have that established, you go a layer deeper and you ask yourself, so why do I need that certain feeling? Where does this need stem from? So you see what I mean? It's kind of like a rose that you're basically opening up. You peel off layer and layer and layer and layer and layer and layer and layer until the rose is all open and beautiful. A really cool prompt or question for shadow work would also be, for example, what would I do in a certain situation or in general in my life if I wasn't afraid? Afraid in general or afraid of judgment, it doesn't matter. Ask yourself that question. What would you do? And then you can ask yourself, so why am I afraid? And then again, shadow work that topic. You see, it's very complex and it will take years and years and years and years and years and years and years to figure you out. You're a mess, girl. And so am I. And gentlemen, sorry. Whoever's watching. Now, while I was filming that, I thought you should have prepared this better in order to make it a bit clearer, maybe throw in a couple of examples. I do hope it was not too broad for you. If you want me to go deeper into certain topics, I gladly will. I gladly give you more examples. And I, of course, would also love to provide you with a couple of shadow work prompts if you wish so. But for now, we leave it at that. I think we have covered quite a bit. I hope you have a wonderful day. Sit with yourself, love yourself, show yourself compassion, and don't forget to accept your shadow. Okay, lovelies, I see you next week where we do a lot of witchcraft and kitchen witchery again. So, goodbye!